Hi everyone, welcome to the very first episode of The Calvin Show. I'm Calvin. So you may be asking yourself, who is this Calvin person? I was born and raised in Denmark, though you might not be able to tell it from my name. And I live in New York City now. I moved here first in '99 and then went back to Denmark and then to India before I was finally able to make this my proper and permanent home. I've also created a $1 million software company called Simplero. I'm a software engineer myself. I write code. I don't these days, but I know how to do it. And I really like to combine that very down to earth code and money things with some of the deeper issues in life, like love and purpose and being in the present moment and why are we even here. And those are the kinds of things that we're going to talk about here on the show. I have two questions that I want to ask you today. The first one is, what if everything is exactly as it should be? Most of us spend our time just focusing on everything that's wrong. What's wrong here? What's wrong here? My body isn't the way it should be. Trump shouldn't be president. We focus so much on what's wrong. And I think it's a complete waste because the way I see it, everything is exactly as it should be right now. Let me tell you a story. There's this old Chinese guy and he has a son. And one day he gets a horse. Someone gives him a horse. And all the neighbors are like, oh my God, that's so amazing. You're so lucky. And the old man, he's like, maybe. They're like, what? But the next thing that happens is that his son goes up to ride this horse and his son falls down and he breaks his leg. And all the neighbors come to him and they're like, oh my God, that's so sad. You were so unlucky. How could that happen? And the old guy, he's like, well, maybe. We'll see. And then what happens is that war breaks out and all the sons have to go fight this war and they might get killed. But of course, the old Chinese guy's son doesn't go to war because he broke his leg. And so all the neighbors are like, oh my God, you're so lucky. And the old guy is, of course, saying, well, maybe, we'll see. Point is, you never know. Maybe Trump getting elected is exactly what needs to happen so that we can get a more conscious liberal something, or maybe clean up whatever, or energize the people. Who knows what's going to happen there? Maybe this is exactly what is right now. So I just choose to believe that this is exactly as it should be right now, because anything other than that just makes you opposed to reality, and it just keeps you in this distant place, and it's not comfortable, and it's not nice. And what actually happens too is that you don't have access to all your resources. And I know it's a completely radical question, but try to live with this question of what if actually everything about me in the world, everything is exactly as it should be right now? What happens is that your shoulders start to relax. Your entire nervous system starts to relax, and you can be at peace. And then you ask yourself the second question, which is, what do you want? What do you want to do? What do you want to achieve? What are your dreams and desires? What is it that you want in life? Most of us go through life not ever really asking ourselves that question and not really answering it. We're like, well, I want financial security to marry and have children and all that stuff. Yeah, sure. Why? What's that going to give you? Why do you really want to do that? Get deeper. We tend to live our lives with all these ideas about what we want that are not really ours. They're society, our parents. I met this woman who is a lawyer and she hates it, but her parents really wanted her to be a lawyer and a doctor. She just loves to play the harp. So really taking the time to ask yourself, what do I want and what do I feel like doing right now? Not from all the stories and the beliefs and what you've learned, but from actually tuning in. Most of us never do this, and it's so critical, it's so important, and it's so powerful. Those are the two questions. What if everything is exactly as it should be right now? Feel it in your body, take it on. What would that really feel like? And from a place of everything is exactly as it should be, and I'm completely at peace with reality and how it is, what do I want to do now? Once you've got that, you've got 90%. Cool, so let's take some questions.
What have you gotten the most out of moving to the USA?
Fuck, now I have to think. That's actually a really good question, and it's a big part of my story. And my kids ask me this all the time because they don't live here. They live back in Denmark. I was born in Denmark, raised in Denmark, always lived my life there until 1999 when I was 24 or something like that. I moved to New York. And I just immediately, once I got here, I remember the feeling, the energy in my legs, even just getting off the airplane and onto the ground. There's just something about it that just felt like coming home to me. And I never knew how out of place I felt in Denmark growing up until I experienced this. And I think that's a key point in terms of like who we are as people. Some people are not sensitive to their environment at all, and some people are. I remember spending some time in Munich a while back, and I hated it. It was like 3 weeks, but I had to just shut the world out with like some music and stuff because I was so uncomfortable there. That was just not my energy at all. New York is, a lot of places in America are. I feel a strong connection to this place. So I knew instantly, this is where I need to be. This is where I belong. There was not a question in my mind. It was just one of those like very knowing things. In the process, it wasn't super easy because then 9/11 happened and then we ended up back in Denmark. I actually ended up living in Denmark for another 9 years after that. Every single one of those years, I felt like an expat American still living in Denmark. I wasn't consuming any Danish media. And I didn't have any Danish customers or clients. I had my own company and we were serving customers all over the world. And I was just waiting to come back. Like I imagine if you're like, say you're gay or lesbian or something, you're living in like a tiny community and you're just like, it just feels off and it just feels wrong in some way. And you think like, maybe it's me that's wrong and I shouldn't be feeling this way. I shouldn't be this way. And then you move to a place where being gay or lesbian is more like a normal thing. And there's a community of people and you're like, this is where I belong. This is where I feel home. It's that kind of feel. I'm not saying that I'm neither gay nor lesbian, but I think it's that feeling of this is where I belong. It's just an energetic thing. So what has moving to New York given me? It's given me the feeling of coming home, of being where I need to be, being where I belong. And that's actually something I wrote a song about, so I'll play that for you one day. And now we have a video question.
Hey Calvin, this is Thomas. Great to see that your show is coming back. I love the older episodes. So my question today is about social life and the fact that many coaches and many gurus talk about the importance of hanging out with the right people. So if you want to grow something big or build a business, coaches talk about that you should hang out and have lunch with the right people. You should be around positive people that can go along with your thinking big. And so how do you deal with that? I do sometimes feel kind of that people might be too negative, and I feel that everyone else has changed because I might have grown a bit in this process with building my own business. How important this is, and how did you deal with it on your fantastic journey? Thank you so much.
Hey Thomas, thank you so much for your question. That's a great question, and I love that you submitted a video. Thank you so much for that. It can be a very self-serving thing for some of these people who say it to say. Like they're saying it to say, well, don't believe these people, don't trust these people. I'm just gonna sell you a course, a workshop, something where you're gonna meet the right people and stay away from those old people. It doesn't make it wrong in and of itself. It's sometimes those things get a little self-serving, and I personally don't really like that so much. To me, it sounds like a little bit of one of those like fear things, like, oh, maybe I should have better friends, or like they're gonna pull me down and now I can't create the life I want because of these people. That's not really true. It's not really true. Obviously, you learn from each other and things rub off on each other when you're with people. And I will say, like, if you feel like people are putting you down, because this will happen. Like when you change yourself, you're going to threaten the self-image and the identity of other people who are not willing to make that change. Like if you're like creating success and taking responsibility for life or losing weight or whatever, the other people who are still, let's say they're losing weight, they're still overweight. Right now, you're proving to them that they could choose to lose weight if they wanted to, but they don't really want to. But instead, most of us live life as victims, right? We're blaming other people and other things. Oh, I can never do this. And so by you changing this and taking responsibility for it, you're proving that that's a lie. And most people are gonna not appreciate that, and so they're going to try to give you a cheeseburger or try to do something to pull you down. And those people you need to cut out, or you need to communicate it and say, hey, I realize that this may be threatening to you, but I don't want to be with someone who pulls me down. So if that's what you plan on doing, then I don't really want to see you. Like, what's the point? Other than that, I just say, like, just don't focus so much on them. Focus on your own energy and your own beliefs and how you want to feel, and expressing that you really want to express. And then you're going to naturally start to attract the people who are compatible with that. And the people who are not compatible with that are just going to slowly fall away. And do expect that as you start to really step up your game and make changes in your life, you're going to lose a ton of friends. And that's fine. You're going to meet a ton of new friends. And they're going to be even better and even more compatible. I had a very close friend, my best friend for many, many years, doesn't want to have anything to do with me because he's like, I like the old person better. I like the guy that I knew back then. And I'm like, that's great. It's just not who I am. I didn't know who I was back then. And I'm so much more who I feel like I truly am right now. So it's a little painful, but it's how it's going to play out. Just know and trust that there's plenty of other people out there that really want who you are becoming, and they're going to just naturally gravitate towards you. It's an amazing journey that you're on, and stay on it. Like, once you get going on this, you realize that almost everybody in the world are living in this kind of fog state, that they're not really taking charge of life. They're not really making decisions about what they want. And stepping out of that reality is a huge step. It's super scary. It can feel lonely at times. But I just want to say you're fucking awesome for doing it. All right? Cool. Thank you.
Last question of the day. From Jan. What if your zone of genius can't feed you?
Well, I can give you a technical answer, which is, by definition it can, because this zone of genius is defined. This is an expression from Gay Hendricks, and it's defined as like where you contribute the most value with the most ease. So inherently you're contributing to value to other people, so it has value, so it will be able to feed you. But that's not the interesting part. The interesting part is the fear in that question of like, oh my God, what if what I really love to do isn't valuable to anyone else? And I think it's a fear that we can all relate to. I mean, it was why I was stuck in programming for so many years. I like it, but I don't love it. I usually, when I've spent a whole day programming, I feel drained at the end of the day. But it was how I knew I could contribute value to other people. And actually, at one point I was at home and I just spent another like 8-hour day coding, and my body was aching, and like I had all this pain in my arms and my shoulders, and I felt like my eyesight started to like blur and be spotty or something. And I remember like the panic that I felt in my body over like, shit, what if I can't do this anymore? What if someday I'm not able to code anymore? Like how long can this go on? Like physically, it's just too painful in my body. It turned out to be fine, right? I mean, I ended up programming, but in a different way, and now I don't have to anymore, and I can do other things. And what happened for me was I started to teach some online courses and do workshops with people. And very quickly, actually, in that, I ended up making a very nice living. And that was really cool for me to learn and to experience. I think the question, instead of like, what if my zone of genius can't feed me? Turn it around and wonder about how can my zone of genius feed me? Or make it more explicit and be like, I wonder how I can make a fabulous living doing things that I love to do, actually doing only things that I love to do. Just assume that there is an answer and then allow the answer to happen for you. And it's all about like noticing in your body what makes you come alive and what brings that connection with people and what seems to have the value. And you may need to experiment because it may be buried deep within you. It may be something that you've refrained from for so many years because it didn't seem like it had value. It may be something that's completely obvious to you and you think it's so obvious it can't possibly have any value to people, but it does because it's not obvious to them. And exactly the fact that it's so obvious to you is what makes it so easy and valuable to other people. Choose to believe that it is there, it exists. I will guarantee you it is there. You just need to look for it and open up to it. I was afraid that there wasn't anything, that maybe I was the guy who was born without any kind of passion that was worth anything to other people. Like, okay, so maybe there was something, but it was gonna take me too long to find it. It's gonna take me 10 years of searching and soul searching, and then maybe I would find something that I was like, but then it would be too late. I don't know. Like, that's something, when you're younger, you're like, oh my God, 10 years. And then the other fear was like, so I do this and I discover like what I really love to do, but what if I don't like it? And that's a weird one because it doesn't make any sense. But I had this big fear that I was going to be sort of a healer. And that wasn't what I wanted to be. I just wanted to be like tough and all business and all these things. And lo and behold, turns out I am a healer and I am a pretty soft, connecty guy. And you know what? I'm actually very happy with it. It was just an idea that I had that wasn't cool, that wasn't worthy or valuable, because that's what I experienced when I grew up in my home. It wasn't valued. Keep digging, commit to going in there, and you'll find it. That's it. But good on you for looking.
All right, that's a wrap, Calvin.
All right. Thank you so much for tuning in. The very first episode is always exciting. Tune in for the next one and submit your questions. We really want your questions. Videos are amazing. Or you can write, you can tweet. There's all the information is going to be down below about how you can submit your questions. Thanks again. And remember, what's the worst that can fucking happen?